Thank you. We'll start with commissioner questions. Down on this end? Questions? Commissioner Johnson.
What's the difference in cost of the two bridges?
0.
All right. Commissioner Peterson?
Thank you. I know you said the cost is the same and the bridges are the same, but I wonder, is there any difference in like long-term durability or like how like an earthquake might impact it or things like that?
From a structural standpoint, both bridges will be adequate, the same.
Those would be the same. Okay,
Right.
thank you.
Commissioner Schifrin?
Yes, I had a question about the environmental review of the EIR for the current project. How would, as I understand it, the final EIR is about to come out for the highway widening in segment 12, is that correct?
It's out. It was released, I think, last week.
It's already been out?
Correct.
So what does it mean to add a bus and shoulder from Freedom to Buena Vista? I mean, I understand it would increase the cost, but would it be a separate project for environmental review?
Yes.
So in a sense, it's not really part of this project. It's a different project that would have to go through a normal environmental review process, and there'd be more information on design. I think there's some concern that this has sort of been dropped down suddenly onto the, onto the agenda as part of, making it seem like it's part of that Freedom State Park Drive to Freedom, but it really isn't. It really is a separate project that would have to, which is just starting, and in a way, I guess you're asking whether there would be any commission objection to starting the process to examine that bus on shoulder extension. Just isn't really clear from the staff report what's going on here.
At this time, staff is only seeking essentially changes to the scope, slight changes to the scope to update the concept of operation. So that's an addition to the scope of work for the contract, because the consultant that we have on board includes the traffic engineering consultant who prepared the concept of operations, who's been helping us develop this concept of operations all the way since 2018 when we started working on it. And so this is really, transparency and informing the commission that and the public that this concept of operations, we're proposing that we update it. And you're correct in that this would be a separate project, and we've got some work to do. We're pretty early on. This has just been a proposal by staff, and Caltrans has to approve a lot of things before it actually comes to fruition. So really what we want to at least start on is looking at that concept of operations and seeing what it would take to potentially add these 3 miles to our facility.
Thank you. If I'm understanding it correctly, that's helpful, but I think it might have been preferable to have a separate item on this, since it is going to be a separate project that's just being initiated. And while it's related to this, as I understand it, because of the analysis and what's being called a concept of operations, as an addition to the as far as the segment 12, State Parks to Freedom Boulevard, it's a different project. I know there is even some concerns about whether it's appropriately considered as a part of Measure D, or whether it would require an amendment to Measure D. I think it may be helpful to have a separate item to really discuss this, and for the commission to have a better understanding about what's actually being proposed. I don't particularly have any objection to it. It's just process-wise, I have some concerns.
Well taken. We can definitely provide updates as we go along through the development and approval process with Caltrans.
Thank you.
Yep.
Additional questions on this end? Yes, Commissioner Montesino.
So, but if it's a separate, and as stated as a questionnaire, that gives us less chances to be able to fund it through, one of the programs or.
So just to clarify, both Commissioner Alternate Schifrin and Montesino's concerns about funding, the original expenditure plan for Measure D included very specific projects. In 2020, this commission amended the expenditure plan to add bus on shoulder to the expenditure plan in a more explicit manner. So that was done in 2020, and in terms of costs, we don't have estimated costs. The improvements have not been designed. They have not been approved. And we have been in conversations with Metro staff as well about potentially partnering on the funding. So the funding for this future improvement is not identified yet. But it is an exciting possibility because what we find in the project delivery world, and it's very beneficial to the public when there's an existing project that's being developed and scope of work gets added to that project instead of having, say, a project and then another project, 5 years later. I mean, the community has to go through construction twice instead of once. There's a lot of value in the soft costs associated with just putting a project out to bid. I mean, there's a lot of work that goes in and funding. And so there's a lot of value from a cost and schedule standpoint. So this project, if we're successful and we can bring everybody into agreement, could start construction as soon as 2025. And that's pretty darn quick in terms of how, projects are normally delivered.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I just jump in real quick? Sarah, can you speak to the Caltrans projects that are going on there and kind of why we might be able to get this done quicker?
Yeah, so they're actually in the design phase for this project. It's a safety project. It's in their state highway operation protection program, their SHOP program. And our proposal is essentially to add specific improvements just for bus on shoulder, so pavement markings and signage that are specific to bus on shoulder. And hopefully, ideally, we have it done before they advertise for construction bids, which is later this year, is what they're scheduled to do. And, there's other opportunities. You could do it during construction. It's a little messier that way, but that's really kind of the landscape that we're looking at in terms of where that project is and whether we could pull this off. Did that?
That's what we're really getting at. If Caltrans is out there and going to plan on doing some work, can we piggyback on the fact that they're out there to get a large benefit for the community for what's relatively a small cost and much less time than we would be spending if we were starting this from scratch by ourselves? As Sarah mentioned, it's not a slam dunk. Caltrans is a big ship going in one direction, and we're wanting them to make a little bit of change after they've left port, and they kind of think they've already got their path. So we're working to push them to make that change because we realize there's a benefit to the public not to have those being done at the same time. There's a benefit to taxpayers that we can do it more efficiently, but that may mean they have to make some adjustments and slow some things down too. So we've had a couple of meetings on that already, but that's the reason that we're not coming up with this as a completely standalone thing. It doesn't matter if we do it this year or next year or the year after. We're trying to piggyback on what they're already out there going to be doing.
Commissioner Rotkin.
I'm a little conflicted on this because on the one hand, I love the idea of just grabbing it and moving ahead and stuff and appreciate the staff taking that attitude. I mean, it's what the public certainly wants out of us. At the same time, Andy's points are worth considering. People do need to understand what we're up to. So it comes down to me to one kind of question. It's not obvious to me that time is saved. I mean, I'm on the transit district. I'd love to, if I have any sense that it's going to make the buses go faster, I'm for it. But has anything study been done, anything to suggest, it's not a particularly congested part of Highway 1. at least from what I can tell.
It is.
Things back up to there from Soquel Avenue and whatever. So the question is, do we have any data that indicates that doing this, it's not free, that doing this would actually speed up the time the bus can travel that extra little through that space?
So we don't have data per se prepared right now. This was a proposal by Metro staff. Originally, we've been talking about it for quite some time, and what we've seen is the backup is actually all the way to Buena Vista at this point. And whether that's, potentially construction traffic or if that, is here to stay, just having the facility, if it's just signage and striping, it's really a very cost-effective way that even if there's just an incident, 1 day a week on Highway 1, there's still some value there. And so although we don't have all of our ducks in a row from a, traffic modeling standpoint for travel times, we still see a lot of value in this proposal.
Well, I don't think we're trying to be sneaky. I think we're trying to be effective. So I'm basically supportive of it. I want to say on the bridge issue, I think it's fine to have the public that lives nearby make the aesthetic decision. Both bridges seem attractive, and I like one that I like better, but I don't think I should be the one that would make that decision. It's not, I don't see it every day. But I think that's great. The two bridge alternatives, I think, are both fine.
Commissioner Koenig?
Thank you, Chair. I want to say just how incredibly excited I am to see this proposal. As has been said, the traffic does back up to at least Marmonte Avenue, if not Buena Vista. And so I think that this absolutely will help the bus save time. And the fact that our staff, Metro staff, Caltrans staff is all thinking creatively about how to get a true bus on shoulder facility constructed faster is fantastic. I mean, it's going to come right in line with this time period when we're seeing $148 million of state and federal investment in our metro system, 57 new hydrogen buses, expanding just the frequency of all of our bus routes. I mean, if we can get this done in the 25, 26 timeframe, when the metro will be free, that's what we're working on right now on the metro board, and hopefully should start later this year. I mean, this could be a complete game changer. And I think it's also extremely important that, I know Caltrans has some reservations about the bus running in the shoulder, and, of course, it's also an emergency pull-off facility. If we can start to work out some of those issues now with this project, I think it'll also bode well for our ability to continue moving that facility forward and further into other areas that we, also heavily impacted by congestion throughout Aptos and Live Oak. So kudos to everyone working on this. I'm a very enthusiastic supporter, and I think this is going to be a huge benefit to our community.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, I just have some brief questions. Yeah, I'm excited about this as well. I feel like this would be a really big deal for specifically the 90X route on Metro that runs, directly from Watsonville into Mid-County. I do have a couple questions just to make sure that I understand. So the bus on shoulder concept of operations report was before my time on the RTC. I think it was in 2019. And so any updates, would we be receiving a report on those updates? Would we get a presentation, a chance to vote on them, anything like that?
We could definitely do that. It's not a document that is, has been formally adopted or approved. It's meant to be more of a living document as the operation of the facility. The needs could change, and that's kind of how we've been operating. We have a document from 2019 that hasn't been updated to date because we don't have an operational facility yet. So this is our first time kind of doing an update.
Okay.
And we could definitely bring the draft, and, if the commission wants to adopt it, or, we could definitely bring that information forward.
That would be great. I would really appreciate that. And then will the update be done before Caltrans says, yes, we're going to bring this project under our project that we're already doing? Or do we need to wait for them to approve and then we update our document?
It would be somewhat of a concurrent everything at once process because we have to develop kind of the concept collaboratively with Caltrans and make sure that we're on the right track. But it would be concurrent.
Okay. And then it says that if we could anticipate the construction would begin in around 2025, then I'm assuming that it makes sense that these updates and all this work with Caltrans and it coming back to the commission would be this year.
Most likely, yes.
Okay. I think, within the staff report, it mentioned that there's no fiscal impact to all of this because we're reallocating funds from other projects. What were those other projects?
So the reallocation, so there's several changes to the scope that happened. There was the bridge work, the grant work, and the bus on shoulder work. So we have come under budget on some tasks within the same contract and have reallocated all of that to these efforts, but there's still this almost $2.3 million amendment to that's obviously in front of you today for approval. The fiscal impacts to the project, there's no new fiscal impacts because of just changes to the schedule and changes to, as you are developing projects, costs sometimes go up and sometimes they go down. And lucky for us, some of our right-of-way costs associated with doing the advanced acquisitions of a few properties that we did last year has resulted in freeing up some funding that will cover this amendment. So we don't need to amend the Measure D 5-year plan, and we don't need to amend the budget.
Okay, so this isn't other projects, like it wasn't like the project concept report came in under budget, and so we're taking money from that. It's tasks within this same contract that we're just kind of moving the funds around within the same contract, correct? Would that be an appropriate way to phrase that?
It would be additional funds for this contract, but it is within the project funding, the current project funding. So we don't need to add additional funding to the project to fund the contract amendment, but we do need to amend the engineering contract so that they could do this work.
Right, okay, great. I think that's mostly it. I just want to clarify so that I can understand what I'm voting on about, again, the environmental aspect of this. So is that something Caltrans is going to do, or we're going to be a part of it, or?
It's to be determined,
So we haven't even started that?
correct,
Yeah,
for the
okay.
bus, I'm assuming you're talking about the
Oh,
bus
yeah,
on shoulder
sorry, yes.
element. Yes, correct.
Okay, hasn't begun. Okay, great, those were my questions. No additional? None. Okay, we will take this out to public comment, and we'll start with, yeah,
Just wanted to clarify. My understanding is we're talking about, only about the bus on shoulder. We're not talking about adding a new auxiliary lane for this area. Am I correct about that? I'm trying to, Matt Farrell's question or comment.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a bit perplexed by the question because we're not adding auxiliary lanes south of Freedom as part of this effort. There are auxiliary lanes under development with the bus on shoulder facility for the Highway 1 Segment 12 project, so that's between.
Other places, but I mean.
Yeah, all the way to Freedom, but beyond Freedom, we are not, so.
Thank you.
any other comments in chambers? Okay, we'll go to, all right, thank you. We will close public comment. Just a quick question for clarification. I know you said we haven't even started the EIR process yet. Do you have an idea of what the timeline is?
Assuming we're talking about bus on shoulder.
Yes, I'm sorry, I keep
There's
forgetting to
there's many types of environmental documents that are possible for this type of improvement. It doesn't mean we or Caltrans will be preparing a full-blown EIR per se, because there's other paths forward through CEQA, especially if your improvements are very non-impactful, if you will, like pavement coloring, pavement markings, and roadside signage. I don't have a timeline right now, unfortunately, but obviously this is getting a lot of attention from the community and the commissioners, so we will definitely be returning with more information at subsequent meetings.
Thank you. Any additional comments, questions? Yes, Commissioner Montesano.
None. I just want to move staff recommendation.
All right.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Commissioner Schifrin.
I have a question.
We have a motion and a second. Commissioner Schifrin.
I have a question about the EIR and the main project. Based on the public comment, is that, I think you said the final EIR is out, and what is its process now? Since it's out, it can be approved. I assume that Caltrans is the lead agency on this. Is that correct, or?
That is
who's-
correct.
What?
That is correct. Caltrans is the lead agency under CEQA. They have delegated authority from FHWA, Federal Highway Administration, for NEPA.
What is
So-
our role with the EIR? Will the EIR be brought before the commission?
So we are the implementing agency for the pre-construction phases, if you will. So the project approval, environmental documentation, and final design process, right-of-way process. And our role is that we are a responsible agency under CEQA. We don't have to bring the document to the commission, but we can, and I'm hearing maybe we should. But typically, if you're familiar with, how we moved forward with the Coastal Rail Trail project, where we were a responsible agency under CEQA, the segment 8 and 9 project being implemented by the city of Santa Cruz, we brought an item to this commission and adopted findings. So we could very well do that for the Highway 1 segment 12 project, if that's what the commission desires.
Okay, my understanding of CEQA is that if an agency is a responsible agency, they at least have to make findings. So I would, if not, approve the document itself before moving forward with the project. But I think it's important, given the public concern about this project, that the EIR come before the commission with findings. And I wonder if the maker of the motion would accept a friendly amendment with these two additional directions. One, that the final EIR on this highway widening project from Freedom to State Park Drive in segment 12 come before the commission, and also that as a separate item, the commission get a report on the proposed auxiliary lane project to Buena Vista.
So, first of all, Chair, if
Go
I may.
ahead, go.
Yeah, the project being proposed south of Freedom is not an auxiliary lane project. It is looking at routine maintenance that Caltrans was planning on doing on their shoulder and adding a little bit of additional striping and signage so that the bus can safely run in the shoulder. That is also a separate EIR from what this the segment 12 and phase 3 of the highway project that this commission is considering. I think we could certainly make a suggestion to staff that we want to review the final EIR for segment 12, phase 3. Totally in support of that, but not sure if it makes sense to necessarily try to add all that stuff to the motion at this time.
Thank you for your clarification. If I said bus on shoulder, you're right, it's the auxiliary lane project. But even as the auxiliary lane project, as I understood the staff response, it would be considered a project under CEQA and would have to go through CEQA review. Is that not correct? It wouldn't necessarily need an EIR. It could be an exemption. It could be a neg deck. But it does need to go through CEQA review even as a shop project.
Correct. So just to clarify, we're talking about the potential bus on shoulder improvements between Freedom Boulevard and Buena Vista. That would be separate, and it would be future environmental review, whatever document that looks like.
So my request to the maker of the motion, the second, is that we get an item that really does update us on that, as well as bringing the EIR on the main project to the commission.
Negative on my end. I don't know the second of the motion.
Is the suggestion just that when Caltrans, assuming that they're the ones doing the environmental impact report, or getting through the CEQA process, just that we receive an update about those findings or that process at the time?
Yes. I just think we should get, since this is a new project that's being discussed with sort of tacked on to what's essentially a request to change the scope of the, slightly of the other project, that we, that be treated separately.
I mean, I
We
think it
could
makes,
take that direction.
yeah, I think it makes sense to
Yeah.
certainly review the environmental impacts in a future time as far as the bus on shoulder project.
I mean, that's fine.
Thank you.
All right,
Hopefully
additional,
that would get you to vote for this direction.
Well, I'm supportive of the staff recommendation. I just think that, given the public concern about the main EIR and some of the concerns about the added project, we should, the commission should see them.
all right. Any additional comments, Commissioner Schifrin? No? Any additional comments from anyone else on the commission?
So I just want to be clear on on what's being proposed. The first is to bring the final EIR that's been filed on already to the commission.
At the appropriate time. As we've made findings on the other segments, we should, and we are a responsible agency, I think we have to get it anyway, legally, but.
So there's but there's the final EIR we've already done, and then the second is any potential environmental document that would have to be prepared for the bus on shoulder portion. And is the motion to bring both of those at the appropriate times?
Separately at the appropriate times.
Okay, I just wanted to make clear.
Yeah.
I don't really see any issue with that. I mean, we've
Yeah,
already
no, I
reviewed
don't
the draft
either.
segment 12, Highway 1 EIR. If we feel that we should review the final as a commission, great. And, I understand any concerns about an additional project. I don't think that the impacts are going to be very big, but I don't see why we wouldn't take the opportunity to at least review that as a commission. So I'm in support of the amendments.
Yeah, I agree.
You have a question?
No, call the
No.
question.
Oh, call the question. Yes, let's call the question. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Eads has his hand up first.
Oh, yes.
Jesus.
Commissioner Eads, do you have a question or a comment?
Why is he muted?
Yeah, I do see that he has his
Hold on
hand
for
up.
a second,
Okay.
Commissioner Eads. Did we mute them?
I can hear you. This is Brian. I just can't hear you. Oh,
Thank you, Brian.
There you go.
online. We can hear you online.
I can hear you on Zoom.
Okay.
Can you all in the hearing room hear me?
Now we can.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, great. Madam Chair, members of the commission, I just wanted to clarify that this is a safety project that we're talking about. And we're more than happy to coordinate on these projects, which is part of why we have an update on projects that we're moving through the project development process on, and we post those on your agendas every month to be able to provide opportunities if there's an interest in consolidating scope or seeing if there's other things, contributing funds or other things like that. So this is a perfect example of a project where there appears to be an idea that Caltrans hadn't considered that RTC staff wanted to discuss, and we're more than happy to do that. But I just want to caution everyone and a brief update on the project, and that is that it is a safety project, so it's a high priority for us. We've already completed the environmental document to my knowledge, and I need to verify that, but from what I see, it is in the design and right-of-way phase, which means we're beyond the environmental phase. We were just talking about interior shoulder widening and barrier improvements to my knowledge. And so there wasn't any scope in the project for exterior work. So not that it can't and shouldn't be considered. We're happy to talk further with RTC staff on that. However, another thought along these lines is sometimes the shoulders on the outside have not been designed to accommodate heavy vehicles except for just in emergency situations. So that's something else that may need to be looked at by the team if they haven't already talked about that yet. So again, we've got kind of a short timeline in terms of when we were expecting to complete the safety improvements, but happy to continue working with RTC staff to see if there's opportunities that we can consider within the scope of the project that we have in front of us.
Thank you, Commissioner Eads. Okay, roll call vote.
Commissioner Peterson?